don't have a coherent theory unless you can explain the origin of time, space, and matter. Secondly, there have to be chemical evolution. According to the Big Bang theory, the Big Bang produced hydrogen and maybe some helium. Well, how did we get these other elements? You mean uranium evolved from hydrogen? They'll say, well, this happens in fusion in stars. Yeah, but you can't get past iron with fusion. There is no explanation for why we have all these different chemicals other than God designed it. Thirdly, we'd have to have stellar evolution. The stars would have to evolve. Nobody's ever seen a star forming. You see a few spots getting brighter, and the evolutionists will say, see, there's a star forming. No, there's a spot getting brighter. Okay? It could be the dust is clearing, and you're seeing a star that was already there. Nobody's ever proven the formation of one star. And yet there's enough stars out there right now that everybody on planet Earth can personally own 2 trillion of them to yourself. Those are the ones we know about. We don't know about the ones that we don't know about. Fourthly, there would have to be organic evolution. Somewhere, somehow, life has to get started. And the evolutionists really don't like to talk about this one, but they're stuck with a very embarrassing position. Modern 21st century scientists are still believing something proven wrong 200 years ago by Pasteur and Francisco Redi. They still believe in spontaneous generation, that life can come from non-living material. Now, if you want to believe that, that's perfectly fine. I don't care what you believe. But don't call that science. And don't make me pay to put that in the public school system as part of science, okay? That's part of your religion. You ought to keep that at home. Fifthly, we have what is sometimes called macroevolution. I don't like this word, and nor the next one, but this says there are changes from one kind of animal to another. Nobody's ever seen that happen, okay? Lastly, we have what's called micro, and I really don't like that phrase, but I'm going to use it tonight to explain it. Microevolution tells us there are variations within the kinds. You may get a big dog or a little dog, but you're going to get a dog, okay? The first 5 definitions of this word are purely religious. None of those have been observed at all. They are outside the realm of science. But the evolutionist has to believe that all 5 of those happened. What we do observe are billions of little changes within the kinds. The Big Bang theory teaches 20 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang where nothing exploded and produced everything. This is what the textbook says. 18 or 20 billion years ago, all the matter in the universe was concentrated into one very dense, very hot region that may have been much smaller than a period on this page. For some unknown reason, this region exploded. Everything in the universe, smaller than a period on a page. Wow. That's a crowded dot. And then 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down and formed a rocky crust. Yes, boys and girls, the planet Earth cooled and a rocky surface was created. And the Earth's surface was hot, and there were large pools of bubbling lava. But it rained on the rocks for millions of years. This is what the textbooks teach, okay? Millions of years of torrential rains created great oceans. And swirling in the waters of the oceans is a bubbling broth of complex chemicals. Progress from a complex chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. Well, I guess it is. Totally stopped. Doesn't even happen. That's how slow it is. This guy said the first self-replicating systems must have emerged in this organic soup. So according to the standard evolution theory in the textbooks, 20 billion years ago, Big Bang, 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down. It rained on the rocks for millions of years and turned them into soup, and the soup came alive 3 billion years ago. So great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa was soup. Now, there's no question there are an awful lot of different varieties of dogs in the world, and I don't think there's a question they probably had a common ancestor, but it was a dog. That doesn't mean all the dogs came from a rock. Okay, 4.6 billion years ago. What evidence did they give to support this theory for evolution? The textbook says we've got evidence from fossils. Oh, now come on, any freshman law student can tell you no fossils could possibly count as evidence for evolution. You don't know those bones had any kids. Bring your bones into court. Hey, Your Honor, these bones are the ancestors of everybody today. Yeah, right. You don't know those are the ancestors of anybody. I mean, a kindergartner ought to figure that one out. Evidence from structure, evidence from molecular biology, evidence from development. All the supposed scientific evidence for evolution has been proven wrong years ago. There is no evidence for the theory. Now, I don't mind if somebody wants to believe in it. This is America, the land of the free and the home of the slave, or whatever. But and if you want to believe in evolution, that's perfectly fine. Honestly, I don't care. But I, for one, resent them using my tax dollars to teach that dumb theory to the kids in school at taxpayer expense. They ought to go start their private schools. Evolution is based on 2 faulty assumptions. Number 1, they assume that mutations will make something new and better. That has never been observed. Secondly, they will assume that natural selection makes it survive and take over the population. You see, in order for evolution to really work, if one animal evolves a little better than the rest, what must happen to the rest of them to make this work? They've got to die. Evolution is a religion of death, not life. The question is very simple in my mind. Did man bring death into the world, or did death bring man into the world? Because if evolution is true, death is the hero of the plot. Darwin understood that very well and said so on page 217 of his book. It's true that mutations happen. There's no question there. But mutations do not produce any evolution. This is a five-legged bull. That's a mutant. There's no new information. It's a scrambling of existing information. Same with the short-legged sheep. That's a mutant. But there's no new information. This two-headed turtle is a mutant. It's not ninja, but he's mutant. And he's going to freeze first winter because nobody makes a double-neck turtleneck sweater. See? Mutations are a scrambling of information that is already existing. They're not going to create a thing. This textbook shows a four-winged fly, and it says normal fruit flies have 2 wings. This mutant has 4. This rare mutation, like most mutations, is harmful. Then it says beneficial mutations are the raw material for natural selection. Well, excuse me, why don't they give an example of a beneficial mutation? Because nobody's ever seen one. They show the kids a bad one, and there's plenty of those, but they never show a good one. One professor said, I know a good mutation. People in Africa that get sickle cell anemia cannot get malaria as easily. I said, well, that's brilliant, sir. That's like saying if you cut off your legs, you can't get athlete's foot. And by the way, that's always the one they bring up, okay? That's all they've got. Textbook says evolution and natural selection go together. Oh, come on. Natural selection selects. It doesn't create anything. Creationists don't argue about natural selection. I think it happens. But it selects. It's not a creative process. This horse was artificially selected by humans down to get the smallest horse they could get. As far as they know, the smallest one in the world. Talk about useless. See, natural selection is not a creative process. It doesn't create a thing. I taught biology. I'm not against biology. Natural selection works, folks, but it doesn't create. It just selects. If you worked in a factory that made cars and you selected the good ones to go through and the bad ones to not make it out the door, how long would it take that selection process to create an airplane out of that car? It's not going to do it, okay? You may get a big dog or a little dog, but you're going to get a dog. And probably the dog, the wolf, and the coyote had a common ancestor. I wouldn't argue about that. But every 5-year-old kid knows they're the same kind. I do this all the time. I get a 5-year-old kid. Okay, kid, here we got a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana. Which one is not like the others? They get it every single time, okay? See, the Bible says they bring forth after their kind, not after their species. Darwin wrote a book called The Origin of Species. Nobody's ever given a good definition of what a species is. They say, well, a dog and a wolf are different species. Yeah, but they can still interbreed and produce puppies. So what is the good, hard, fast definition of species anyway? The Bible says it's the same kind, and that's where the argument ought to be held. Variations certainly happen, but